It is the second day of September and the second day of Zendikar Rising. Spoilers, we've got some more spicy cards to go over today. Jake, are you ready to do this?
We've got a lot to talk about, and one of them is a reverse Tarmogoyf with a lot of keywords. We're going to get into it. The video starts right now.
Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below.
Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Jake.
I'm Joel. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We're going to cover day 2 of our Zendikar Rising spoiled cards. But first, if you would, go down there and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for us if you like the video by the end of it. It really helps us out.
It's the best way to support the channel with just the click of a button, and that's pretty easy, clicking a button.
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead and jump into these cards, right?
Let's do it. Swap it over. So, yesterday we ended here at Palaka Predation. Let's continue forward. Emeria Captain looks like an uncommon 4 limited that fits in with Party. It's a flying Vigi 1/1, enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature in your party. Same with Tajiru Snarecaster here. Snarecasters are reaching 1/4 for 3. We talked about Spitfire Lagak yesterday. This is our landfall, deals a damage to each opponent. This is, however, the showcase frame. Moving on. Taunting.
I do like the showcase frame.
Oh yeah,
I think it's pretty good. I guess we could comment on that.
It continues
the red
this, like,
showcase here.
Yeah, the angular thing that you were talking about yesterday's video, and this art by Dominic Mayer is pretty excellent. And this is
it's really cool.
Very, very cool piece. It's just a common, but it got some cool art. Taunting Arbor Mage is a 3-cost 2/3 with a 3-mana kicker. Enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, all creatures able to block target creature do so. I mean, that's solid for a limited deck. I mean, this is a great card as a, finisher for your creature-based limited deck.
Yeah, and if you could give it Death Touch, I mean, that's just a lot of upside.
Oh yeah.
I mean, anytime that kind of thing is going on. I do like the Archpriest of Iona here. Power equal to the number of creatures in your party at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you have a full party, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. This is, of course, a 2 toughness, and that power is equal to your party. I think this card is really, really good. It's always difficult for Boros. In some standard environments, the deck has been really explosive. The last time I can remember Boros being just exceptional was when Boros Reckoner was in standard. But since then, we've kind of seen it go into different colors. Boros, maybe we'll see with Zendikar Rising if it's going to have the potency that it needs, but I do think this is a really, really good 1-drop.
I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to pull off full party in constructed or limited, honestly, of this set. However, I do know that in the past, 1-mana 2/2s have been way strong for aggro decks. And so Jake's actually absolutely right. In a Boros deck, if you can make it like Clerics and Warriors, maybe Clerics and Rogues, I don't know. If you can at least get Archpriest to a 2/2 by turn 2 and it's swinging in, this has the potential to be a solid aggro card. Here's another one that's got a potential to be a solid aggro card, and that's Ackham Hellhound. 1 red for a 0/1 landfall. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Jake, you named the card that this reminds me of from back in the day. What was it? 1 white creature.
Little Step Links.
Step Links, yeah, that was actually a legit card. Also notable that this card is a common.
Plated Geopede is similar as well, so yeah. It's a very strong thing, and I think while we have these 2 cards next to them, let's talk about the Hellhound and Archpriest of Iona. The problem with this party mechanic and what you want to avoid, and they are a lot of relevant keywords here, a lot of relevant creature types, but what you want to avoid is building your deck into something simply so that you can pull party off and then neglecting cards that are strictly better in slot, which I think is going to be the trap of these new mechanics until they get a lot of extra support.
Yeah.
However, in party, Rogue or Warrior and Wizard, those are 2 very, very, very popular creature types. I think Rogue a little bit less so, but I think rogues are really cool, so it's really cool to see rogues getting more support. And then I think clerics, we see clerics a good bit, But it's really interesting to, it's just something to keep in mind is what I meant to say. It's not really interesting.
Sure.
It is interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah. And what we're going to do at the end of spoiler season, once we've got the entire set spoiled, we're going to go back through the set and through every set that is standard legal and talk about the best ways to pull off full party or multiple creatures in your party. Not really sure how we're going to phrase how we're going to go over that video, but I do know I want to go through a video and talk about the best clerics, rogues, warriors, and wizards in standard and what combinations you might be able to pull off to achieve having a full party. Ackham Hellhound, we'll move on from you. Nice to see a red Step Links. Jake, let's talk about this incredible card, Skyclave Apparition. At first glance, it's not fantastic, but then you start thinking about the repercussions. Enters the battlefield, exile up to one target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates an XX illusion creature token where X is the CMC. It doesn't return the thing to the battlefield, Jake. It says, goodbye, CMC 4 or less, non-land permanent, non-token permanent, adios. You can have irrelevant 3/3 in its place. Any takers? I'm in on this card.
Yeah, think, and we said this before the video, but think the power of Jace the Mind Sculptor or less is what this card is going to hit.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to hit big stuff like Avengers Zendikar and all of those big, huge creatures, but there is a lot of value on this 3 cost, and in formats like Modern, Pioneer, Legacy, formats that really value cheap, efficient spells, something that's going to exile that Jason Mind Sculptor, because it's not like, what's the one card that comes to mind from the Spirit deck? You flash it in and it counters target spell, but as soon as you remove it, they get the spell back.
Yeah, Spell Queller.
I can't, Spell Queller, that's what it is. Yeah, it's more potent than Spell Queller. I think that, or, that's in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a relevant,
very good card.
Relevant creature type in Spirit. It will hit any non-land, non-token permanent, so enchantment, artifact, creature, planeswalker, doesn't matter, it's going to hit it. I think that this card has a lot of power, and for 3 mana, I think that this card has playability into older formats. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this card does. On my side of the battlefield, I'm not looking forward to having it cast
like a vanilla, like a vanilla 4/4 versus having to deal with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Sure. I will take the vanilla 4/4, the token that I can just unsummon. Like, it's just a really good card. I'm excited to see what it does and what kind of waves it makes.
Agreed. Umaro Wizard is what looks like a limited uncommon. Whenever you cast an instant sorcerer or wizard, it gains flying until end of turn for a 4/3 for 5. It's also one of our modal DFCs. Here we have got a core cleric 1/3 for 2, enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life, and it does flip to be a plains land. Here we've got another party card. It deals 4 damage to target creature and X damage to that creature's controller, where X is equal to the number of creatures in your party. So up to 4 damage to a creature and 4 damage to that controller for 5 mana at instant speed. Not too shabby, won't see constructed play, but it's solid in limited. Into the Royal is a cool reprint. We've got a 2 mana,
great card.
2 mana bounce and a 2 mana kicker to draw a card on the bounce. Demon's Disciple, we've seen effects like this a lot. Great in limited, some playability in
it's just a
constructed.
Plague Crafter kind of thing going on here.
Exactly. Yeah. Grotag Night Runner.
Fleshbag Marauder.
Right. Yeah, Fleshbag Marauder. That's what I was thinking of. 1 red, 2 other for a 2/3. When it deals combat damage to a player, exile top card. You may play that card this turn. This is that light up the stage effect that they've been putting into red more and more every set as the card advantage in red as a color. And it's nice to see it on a stick. It's nice to see it whenever it pops up.
This is really, really good. Especially in Goblins, when you have cards like Frenzied Goblin and stuff, or cards that are able to, Goblins that give other Goblins unblockable.
Yeah.
When you're able to get that effect off and then get that card advantage off of one of your beaters, somebody who's doing the damage for you that's going to help you win the game, I think that's a very potent effect, because you want to be able to fill the board up with Goblins as quickly as possible. However, you want them to be very efficient with their power and toughness compared to their converted, and that's where this card kind of falls short. However, from a limited setting, I think this card is just
Love it.
Bonkers good.
Also,
really good.
I mean, you just said it, but goblins that make other goblins unblockable, they got a buddy right here. We'll go back to our legendary.
There you go.
But
Sneaking Guide.
yeah, pay 2, tap him. Target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked. These two go hand in hand, and
there
are
was
best
Goblin
buds.
Tunneler, and
Right.
I think that might have been 2 mana, but that was in Zendikar Worldwake, I believe. And I like Sneaking Guide. I didn't see that card there, but yeah, Sneaking Guide and Grotag Night Runner, yeah, they probably hang out. They probably go to the same bar, probably do a lot of high-fiving.
Oh yeah.
They're probably friends.
Kaza Royal Chaser is a legendary human wizard that I am very interested to build a EDH deck around, even though it does seem very focused on one creature type. 1 red, 1 blue for a 1/2 flying haster. Tap our Kaza Royal Chaser, and the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn cost X less, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability resolves. I am very interested in seeing how this card can perform. I'm very interested in seeing how many wizards I can get on the battlefield at any given time in EDH. Tap this, cast a huge X spell, pump that extra, cost reduction into it, and really burn somebody's face off.
Yeah, man. I think the card, it looks fragile to me. In EDH, I'm always valuing like something like bigger and better than this.
Sure.
But maybe this is the kind of thing that somebody is going to find really fun. The fact that you think it's going to be fun, I'm interested to see what you do with it, because I think wizards, they're a powerful tribe.
Well, I mean,
there's
you better
no selling
bet
short.
Any of our patrons, if you're watching this right now, you better bet this is going to be one of my brawl decks when this set comes out. So start getting ready to go against the wizards.
The art on it too.
Oh yeah, cool. Riding some kind of weird sky surfboard. Not a great picture here, but we have got a great mythic to go over. Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. Green, 3 other for a legendary elemental. Power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. And the relevant text on this: non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. Right off the rip, Jake, I know you got a lot to say about this card, but right off the rip, in EDH, Cyclonic Rift, return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. This makes all your creatures lands.
It's pretty nuts. I think it's interesting because you become especially susceptible to spells like Armageddon, but that's like a very niche kind of effect to play against, but you're going to play against that kind of stuff in EDH.
Right.
I think this card is very strong. We can expect to see it played in Standard. I don't know if it'll be because it's a legendary creature of 4 of, but Uro's a 4 of. There's no telling what kind of degeneracy will be built around this, but I do think it's a cool effect.
I wouldn't compare it on power level to Uro or even the 4 of.
No.
Uro's essentially a 4 of because it's a spell and then also a ridiculous creature. Ashaya is still fantastic. I thought since we've got Nissa rotating, we weren't going to have to deal with Ridiculous Ramp anymore in green, but it seems like Ridiculous Ramp in green is ever present and is never going to go away.
Yeah, it seems like a really fun card. If you were doing something that I'm just kind of brewing in my head is like an elves that worship Eldrazi kind of thing.
Sure.
And this could be the halfway mark to getting that big Eldrazi out on the way.
Yeah.
I think it's really fun. I'm not super interested in it, to be completely honest, but I do think it's very powerful.
Well, you really don't like playing the color green in general. There is a historic...
That's true.
There is a historic elves deck that is right on the cusp of being fantastic. It'll be interesting to see if this card can help it break out and get to that, Ugin, or get to that a big Eldrazi, like you said, even quicker, and seeing if that helps. Ardent Electromancer is a limited common, 1 red, 2 other for a 3/2. When it enters, add mana for each creature in your party. Seafloor Stalker, same thing, limited common, gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked. Ability costs 1 less to activate for each creature in your party. Core Blade Master, I think, actually has some possible legitimacy if warriors or some kind of tribal thing takes off. 1 white, 1 other. For a 1/1 double striker, equipped warriors you control have double strike. I was brainstorming with Jake before we shot today, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong down below, but I think the last time that we had a Pro Tour caliber deck that was a tribal deck was zombies around Amonkhet. Since then, Jake pointed out, we've had elementals as a strong tribe. I don't think it ever quite got all the way there, But it would be interesting to see if we do end up with some kind of aggro warrior equipment core blade master strategy. But other than that, it's an uncommon that'll be fun to play in limited. Kitesail Cleric is a 1/1 flyer for 1. If it was kicked, so it can be a 4 cost. If it was kicked, tap up to 2 target creatures. Could be solid, very solid.
1/1 flyer early on, and I mean, it just screams limited to me. But, maybe someone can build something else out of it, but it does get better later, which is really nice.
Right.
You know, that's what I love about Kicker.
That's why I love Kicker too.
Yeah, Kicker's good.
Anti-Cognition, I think we'll actually see some play. 1 blue, 1 other, counter target creature or planeswalker unless its controller pays 2. So it's pretty solid early on, especially while people are still tapping out on, mana 1 through 5, 1 through 6.
That's right.
And then if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, just counter that spell, then scry 2. So if you have 8 or more cards in the opponent's graveyard, you get this Essence Scatter that can also hit planeswalkers, and you get a scry 2 tacked on. I think that this is very good. It might end up being like a one of in the deck and a couple more in the sideboard to see if you're going to be playing against a control matchup or against an aggro matchup or some kind of mid-range thing. But I do think that this is the card that sneaks in to some standard constructed deck as like a 1 of, a 2 of,
Yeah, I think it's, again, another card that's really good. Joel talked about it just now, but the mana efficiency that's important in competitive matches in those like first 4 or 5 turns, this is going to hit a lot of stuff. A lot of people depend on creatures. There's a lot of really good utility creatures. Having that Essence Scatter, it's kind of like a baby mana leak?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not. But having an Essence Scatter that's going to allow you later on to straight up counter that spell. If you're playing this in a control deck, they're going to have 8 cards in their graveyard. If you're blowing up the battlefield, if you're countering spells, like if the game goes on multiple turns, their graveyard is going to fill up. And then this is just going to be a hard counter for really, really pesky stuff. Any planeswalker, any big creature that can be countered. I think it's a really strong card. It's really good early. It's really good late.
One of the downsides of playing cards like the Snare or Censor or any of that stuff is that late game they're absolute trash draws. And you're right. This is kind of a counterspell, mana leak-ish card with a sort of kicker so that it's still relevant late game. It just continues on what we talked about in yesterday's video, that it seems like they are very much trying to push design in the way of no non-matches. We want to knock out. We can't fix the resource system. We're very sorry. The resource system is always going to be random draws. However, we can try and eliminate the games of being non-matches when you have just nothing to do by printing lands on the other sides of cards and making spells modal that aren't even really modal spells, if that makes sense.
And while you're talking about that, let's just let's glance over these limited cards, essentially.
We've got a 1 red, 5 other, 4/5 with trample on one side and a mountain on the other. We've got a Balaged recovery, 1 green, 2 other, return a card from your graveyard to your hand, and a forest on the other side. These are cards I'm very excited to play with these cards. When we do the early access event, if we're invited back this year, I would love to, or this set, I would love to build something that's got a lot of these in it just to try them out, see how they feel when I'm playing, see how it goes. Here's 2 more. Colony Ambush, 1 green, 2 other, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control at instant speed, which is relevant, very relevant. And it's a forest. Sajiri Shelters, 1 white, 1 other. Instant speed, target creature you control gains protection from color of your choice until end of turn, which, as you know, we've said it a lot, can either be a finisher or a protect your creature from targeted removal, and it's a plains on the other side. Jake, without having played with them, we know we haven't done that yet. What's your first impression of these cards? I guess second day impression of these cards that have this is the front. I had to confirm this with like Magic Judge friends today. I was asking all the different intricacies of these in all the different chat rooms and discords that we're in. These cards, these are the front, so this is what it recognizes the card as. This is its identity as a sorcery, and then it can also be played as a forest. What do you think of these cards?
I think we were just talking about it, but you're going to want to have about, like, I would say if you are building them into your deck, You just want them in there unless they are very good cards by themselves. And if you're really just playing them to kind of like smooth out your draws sometimes, you're probably going to want to run, in my opinion, probably between 5 and 8 of them. You really don't want to see them all the time. The ambush card is good. The shelter card is good. But the other cards, it's just...
Yeah, they're medium.
Draft chafe. It's the kind of thing where it's like early on, if you have 1 mana and... a handful of 2 and 3 cost spells, but you have an Akum Warrior, then yeah, start off the match with the land tap that the Akum Warrior can come in as,
right,
and then play your next land, and then you're ready to go with 2 cost spells from there. But it's not the kind of thing where I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get mana screwed in Magic the Gathering. I'm going to start filling my deck with a bunch of bad creatures that can come in as tapped lands. It's just going to be counterproductive. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Cards like this remind me of that Crozen Tusker, I think is the name of the card that they print into all of the EDH precons, that early on it's got land cycling, and then later on it's like a 5/6 or a 6/6. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it reminds me of that. You're exactly right. You have something you can play early on if that's what you draw, and if you draw it late, it's relevant. Eliminating non-games, it just seems like something they want to do. Prowling Felidar, here's a 4-cost 2/3 with Vigi. Whenever a landfall happens, you get a +1/+1 counter on it. Cool. We've got a showcase frame of it here. Also cool. Drawn to the Last Blood Chief. Black, 3 other for a flying 4/4 vampire cleric. Whenever it attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. The creature's a vampire in addition to its other types. When I saw this at first, obviously I very often analyze cards through the 3 Ways to Build series, and so I started trying to brew this up. And honestly, Jake, I have a vampire deck. Markov is just the king of the vampire tribal deck. He's 3 colors. He's ridiculous ability. You don't even have to have him on the field. And this feels very much like one of the 99 of that deck to me. But it feels like a very strong one of the 99, You
return that card to the battlefield. I mean, in a vampire deck, you're going to be happy to get any of your vampires back because it's likely going to trigger a bunch of effects that are on the battlefield already. Yeah, it's just one of the 99. I think the card is fine. I think it's pretty good. I think it's going to be great in EDH, like you said. Tribal decks that play vampires are going to like it. I don't think it's going to be...
It won't see constructive play.
I don't know if it's going to be the kind of thing that's going to see constructive play, just because it's so expensive.
It's expensive and slow, dude. It comes into the battlefield.
But it does get stuff back.
Sure, but at what cost? You have to play it for 5, wait till turn 6 at the earliest. Then you don't even get to choose which creature card comes in, and it can't be a legendary. It just it's a fine mythic. It'll be a cool EDH card in as one of the 99 in some decks, but I just don't see it played in constructed. We talked about Legion Angel yesterday. Very on theme that it has shown up twice in the previews. Expedition Diviner is it's a common, obviously for draft. 1 blue, 3 other flyer. When you control if you control another wizard, when it dies, draw a card. Fine. Sure. Zulaport Duelist flashes into reduces somebody's power by 2 and make the controller mill 2. Fine. 1 mana.
If you're using, I see those cards as kind of being cards that going into the next standard season are going to help facilitate, get stuff into the opponent's graveyard more than making them mill and making that the strategy of the win. I think it's going to be like, how can we get cards in their yard so that we could start getting these alternative effects out of having X amount or more cards in their graveyard, which seems to be a pretty big theme here.
Yeah, rogues care about milling, turns out. Grotag Bug Catcher, if I'm pronouncing Grotag correctly. 1 red, 1 other for a 1/2. It tramples and it gets +1/+0 when it attacks for each creature in your party. Cool. We saw Clearwater Pathway. It's one of the modal duels. We saw Coveted Prize. There's our extended of Drana. We talked about Alchem Hellhound already. Here's its showcase. We talked about Tajuru Paragon and Aura yesterday, as well as Branchloft. I'm telling you,
if you want to see that video, we'll put it in the cards. You can go check it out.
That was in day 1 of the spoilers. If you missed that one, go check it out. Branchloft Pathway, Jake. I'll tell you, these extended of these modal DFC dual lands, pathway lands, whatever we want to call them, As you know from the first video, I'm super high on these. I really need to play with them to feel how they feel when you play them, but I just think that they're going to be fantastic, and they're going to go into so many formats. These extended versions, and then what I'm assuming we're going to find in the collector's packs of these extended as foils. Ooh, baby, I want it so bad. I want 4 of all of them in the extended with the foiling, Jake, even though at a competitive level, you probably don't want them in foil. Valakut Awakening we saw, as well as Needle Verge Pathway. Deadly Alliance. Oh, yeah. Here's a destruction spell, Jake. Instant speed, costs 1 less for each creature in your party, so up to 4. So the floor of this is 1 mana. I mean, I guess the floor is 5, and the ceiling of this is 1.
I love that it's instant. It makes it immediately playable in limited. Immediately great in limited, being an instant spell. I don't mind paying 5 for a kill spell in a limited format.
Especially if it's just straight up.
I'll put it at the top of my curve. If it's a straight up, no chaser, it's gonna kill it. It has versatility. It's a expensive hero's downfall here. It kills creatures or planeswalkers. Right. But yeah, the upside, the fact that if you do have a full board, you might be very mana efficient and kill something for 1 black mana and then have mana left over to do something else.
I would say most often you're going to cast this for 3 or 4 in the right kind of deck. Getting a cleric, a rogue, and a warrior, getting 2 each, 2 of either a cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard on the battlefield, and being able to cast this for
reasonable.
1 black, 2 other, instant speed, creature, planeswalker. Yeah, big fan. Ravager's Mace is a 1 red, 1 black, 1 other equipment that enters the battlefield. You attach it to target creature you control automatically. Now that's not the only time we're going to see this today. And equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each creature in your party and has menace. I think I'm liking these equipments, Jake, that are 3 costs. We're going to talk about one more up here further along.
I like an equipment that enters and attaches.
Right.
It makes it a lot more attractive than the equipment that has to enter and then sit there for a turn. A lot of the time in limited, I find myself passing on equipment just because it's not very mana efficient to like play it. If it's something where it's like a one drop equipment that comes with like +1/+1 for an equip of 1 or +2/+0 for an equip of 1, like the axe. There's that really popular axe. It's just +2/+0. I will put that on in my deck as a 1 of. It has to be mana efficient. That's what I like about this mace. It enters, it attaches, it's ready to go. I love menace. I have a little spot in my heart for menace. I think menace is a good mechanic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. I mean, essentially, if the equipment is attaching when it comes in, you've got an enchantment aura that sticks around, as far as I'm concerned. So that's actually a good way to design these equipments to get people to play.
Go with me here. What if this had been a creature? Ravager's Mace is a cleric, right? It's just a cleric, but it's indestructible. It can't swing, cannot attack.
Okay.
It's just the mace itself fulfills one of the kind
of like a living weapon sort of thing.
It's a creature that can be equipped.
Right.
It is it's just like a living, that's like a living weapon.
Yeah, it's kind of living weapon. It comes in, I mean, you could design it so that it comes in, creates a, 0/0 or a 0/1 cleric token, automatically attaches it. I could see like Ghostly Axe or something creates a spirit cleric when it comes into the battlefield. And if it gets targeted, it dies. I don't know. We're not designing cards. We're not good at that.
We're not allowed to do that.
Thwart the Grave is got some high upside. Black, 4 other, costs 1 less for each creature in your party. Return target creature card and up to 1 target cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So I do like that it goes straight back to the battlefield. This will be a card that plays late, and so having creatures on the battlefield to reduce the cost of this, to return creatures to the battlefield, it's a little weird for me. It feels Win Mori, but it could have high upside, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a good limited card again.
Yeah, well,
and if we're wrong about that, let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
it might have some upside. I do like that it does check for very relevant creature types to bring back as well, but it is, like you said, it is going to be an expensive card.
Right. Swarm Shambler is a 1-cost 0/0 that enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on itself. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes a target of a spell an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token, and you can pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. This feels like the kind of card that I would always way undervalue, but somebody who's way better at this game than me would break the hell out of it and just whoop me up and down the field.
It's 100% the latter, dude. I think this is the kind of card that, someone's going to figure out a way to break it. It's extremely mana efficient. The ability only costs 1. I mean, put a 1/1 counter on it for 1 mana at the end of every turn. You should be doing that.
Right.
If you didn't use that mana, oh man, put a 1/1 counter on this thing.
Yep.
I think this is, I really do think it's going to be the kind of card that finds some pretty serious play.
Yeah.
It goes wide. It gets bigger. It's it's brutal.
Yeah, mono green has been a deck for a while. I don't think it's losing a ton of cards, and so this is the kind of card that could come in and fill a slot in one of the cards that it's losing. So we're at our headliner here. I'm gonna bring this card up individually just because I think it is awesome. Nighthawk Scavenger, Jake. Black, 1 other, Vampire Rogue, flying, death touch, lifelink. 1/3, got a star and a plus on that 1 power. And it says Nighthawk Scavenger's power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. Jake, is this card a house or is this card an absolute house?
It's like you said, man. It's Vampire Nightgoyf.
Yeah.
It's Tarmahawk.
Tarmahawk. Oh, I actually kind of like that better because it's kind of like Tomahawk. Tarmahawk Scavenger.
No, yeah, it's a very strong card. The fact that it's a 1/3 right off the bat, that death touch is very strong. Just the fact that this card is going to have that 1 power. And then, plus the card types in the opponent's graveyard. We were just talking about these kind of cards that are going to enter for the specific purpose of just milling a couple cards of your opponent's library into their yard.
And it's a rogue.
Nighthawk Scavenger loves that. Like, this card can be very big very quickly. I could see this being a 5/3 for 3 very easily. It's very common for people to run, when you have cards like Fabled Passage, there's the land that's going into the battlefield. Everybody's running Fabled Passage in Standard. So it's going to check the land. It's going to check, any kind of creatures that you're removing. It's going to check those. People like to play instants and sorceries. So there's 4 right there. That's before you even get to planeswalkers, before you even get to artifacts that are popular as well, and enchantments. So this has so much upside. For 3 mana, the fact that it has flying, death touch, lifelink is just, the first time I saw Vampire Nighthawk, the first time we all saw it, we were like, why? Like, how did it get all of this? We were like, why does it have so much going on? And in Standard, that card was played to great success by many people. I see this card being no different. This card isn't dependent on vampires. This card is just good as is.
Right. And it plays with the rogue thing, like you're talking about. So many rogue cards we've seen. And then we've got relevant creature types going, and then you got a good stew on. And so I really think that this card is either going to be in one of 2 camps. Absolute trap, and you shouldn't play this card because it actually is stinky, especially with how push design is right now, or absolute house, and I don't think there's really going to be any middle ground. I am a big fan of it. I can't wait to play with it. One of the first cards I'm going to brew around is going to be Rogues.
I mean, let's just talk about blue-black control really quick.
Right.
Like a mana-efficient spell. For 5 mana, you play your Nighthawk Scavenger, and then you leave a counter spell up to protect it.
Yeah.
It just seems like late game, such a good swing back. Being able to just crack back, get that life lost from early on in the game.
Yeah.
Clear the board, play your Nighthawk Scavenger. It's your flyer. It has evasion. It has lifelink. It has death touch. It has everything you need to swing the game back.
And
Vampire Nighthawk wasn't like that. Vampire Nighthawk pecked at you for 2 unless you figured out a way to buff it. This card just gets better later.
Right. There has been a blue-black deck, aggro-ish deck, kind of flash blue-black thing bouncing around. Sure. I'm curious if some of the, bones of that deck can get reassembled into a Nighthawk Scavenger shell. I don't know. This card is just so good. It was so cool to see this card today. It's just, this is one of the kinds of cards that makes me love preview seasons, because you see it, it's got all this potential, it's got all these freaking keywords, you love it,
sure.
And then a year later, you're absolutely tired of playing against it, and you're ready for it to rotate.
For sure. Yeah, it'll definitely be that second there. Yeah.
Dauntless Survivors, limited card, unless +1/+1 counters bounce up. 1 green, 1 other enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Expedition Skulker, 1 black, 1 other for a 2/2. So you got a bear, and it gets death touch as long as you control a rogue. So you got a little upside bear in black, it's fine. Tabarak's Hope's Demise, this is a very cool one. I'm very excited about. 1 black, 2 other, Flying Demon Cleric, 2/2. Has lifelink as long as it has 5 or more +1/+1 on it. You're going to put a +1/+1 counter on it whenever one of your non-token creatures you control dies. And if that creature that died was a cleric, you can Phyrexian Arena yourself and draw a card, lose a life. I think this is awesome. 3 cost. It's got clerics that it plays with. We already know that we're going to have some graveyard cleric, bouncing, returning, cool stuff happening. And Tabarak's at 3 mana for a flying 2/2 that just grows as stuff dies. And
it plays very well with Shadowborn Apostles.
Sure. Oh yeah, hugely.
Which is
hugely.
Yeah, so from that perspective, and that's a common that's, oh man, that common is pretty expensive. That's like a $4 or $5 common at this point. That card needs a reprint. EDH likes that card. So Tabarak's plays really well with that. I'm interested to see what it does in Eternal formats.
In Historic,
but no, I do agree, it is good.
You've got Woe Strider in Historic with Blood Artist and Hope's Bastion already playing around as kind of a drain deck, sacrifice deck. You've got Priest of Forgotten Gods is in that deck as well. Some of those cards are also in Standard there's Rakdos Sack, there's a Jund Sack in Historic. I mean, this card seems like a very mana efficient card to slot right into those sacrifice decks where you're already killing your own stuff for upside anyway. I will say, though, at 3 mana, I think that deck has a very flooded 3 mana slot with Woe Strider, Mayhem Devil in some of the Rakdos builds. You've got the Midnight Reaper to draw cards and be kind of a card advantage engine for you at the 3-drop slot. And so, as a legendary, obviously it won't be a 4 of, but it could slot into that 3-drop slot pretty easily if I'm thinking about it correctly. Let's go up here and look at our last row for Wednesday, September 2nd. Umaro Mystic is a Merfolk Wizard for a red, a blue, a 1 other, 1/3 flyer. When you cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, so a little bit of prowess on a flying Merfolk Wizard that's riding a manta ray, so you can't complain about that. Over here, we're going to talk about this one last. Over here, we have got a 1-cost instant that deals damage to any target, and if the permanent would die this turn, it gets exiled, which is pretty excellent, and it can also be a mountain land that enters the battlefield tapped. Look at this art, Jake. Look at this stalactite that has fallen through this person's forearm.
Yeah,
that
that's
is
pretty cool.
Gnarly
pretty cool.
art. And
I love that art, and it's an interesting card.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I'm going to have to play with those cards that are dual face and mechanically feel how they play and see what my final opinion of them is. But let's wrap up the day with Maul of the Sky Claves, Jake. 1 white, 2 other for an artifact that enters the battlefield and automatically attaches to a creature you control, and that creature gets +2/+2, flying, and burst strike. I love this equipment.
Yeah, it's extremely, extremely strong in limited. I'm interested to see what it will do in constructed, but in limited, this would be 100% a pack one, pick one for me. You can build the whole deck. It's good on anything that you put it on. It turns a 1/1 into a 3/3 flyer with first strike.
Yeah.
It enters and immediately attaches, giving something +2/+2 flying and first strike.
Yep, I'm loving that. That's a design
a big
space.
threat. That can close a game out. If you are running Tarmahawk or that Vampire Night Goyf,
yeah,
and you throw this on it, GG, man. That's the game.
You win.
This is a very, very strong spell. Whenever you see like an equipment like this is like easy pick for me in a limited experience.
I love that the design space they're exploring for these equipment to actually make them relevant in constructed Magic potentially is that it automatically attaches to something when it enters the battlefield. That makes it more relevant to me. I mean, Seasoned Haloblade is our current standard version of Adanto Vanguard, and it's a 3/1, discard a card, gains indestructible until end of turn. I think I've got all that right. But you drop it on turn 2, you drop this on turn 3, automatically equip it. You've got a 5 whatever, I think it's a 5 power flying burst striker that can turn indestructible for pitching a card. This card feels like it's got potential in some kind of white aggro deck or white X, white-red aggro deck. I just think that it's very potentially playable.
Yeah, I mean, you can have I'm thinking like white red aggro that starts with this and ends with Embercleave.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows?
Ridiculous, because that's what Embercleave needs, is more support in standard right now.
I know, right? This card is very strong. Again, in limited, I'm excited to see if it does anything in constructed and standard and like pioneer environments or anything like that. I am really excited about this attach as soon as it enters. I think that's nice.
Yeah, agreed. Let's close the book on day 2 of Zendikar Rising. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Like I said, if you liked the video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you are subscribed so you can follow along throughout the entire Zendikar Rising spoiler season. We've had some bonkers stuff come through so far, and I know that we're not even near the end yet.
A great ride so far. There's been some cool reveals. I'm excited to see what happens with these dual-faced cards, these modal dual-faced cards. Yeah. Zendikar Rising, man. It's a thing. I'm starting to look lo-fi. It's throwing me off.
Oh yeah, you are looking a little lo-fi. I'm not sure what's going on over there. Jake, are we losing you to the Aether?
I think you're losing me. I think I'm fading away into the cacophony that is Zendikar Rising spoilers.
Yeah, absolutely. While Jake deals with his Back to the Future situation of slowly fading away from the picture, we're gonna say tapped out, and we'll catch you tomorrow.